Let's do this. The Cult of Hockey podcast by the faithful and for the faithful. I'm David Staples of the Edmonton Journal, and I'm here tonight with Bruce McCurdy. Hey, Bruce.
Hey, David. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing good. Team Canada played, Bruce, and they won. I'm a huge Team Canada fan, Bruce. I just love It's been my favorite hockey ever since I was a kid, and tonight didn't disappoint. It was a great game. And I know there's a lot of people who favor, like, they were grumping about the Oilers having to go and blah, blah, blah. But would you rather watch that game or game 56 of the Edmonton Oilers season? I mean, those games are getting pretty pathetic before the break here. And I wasn't that impressed with the regular season. They needed a break. This hockey, I thought, was spectacular. Canada wins 4-3 in overtime over Team Sweden. And it was a very interesting game in a lot of ways, a roller coaster ride for Canada. What did you make of it, Bruce?
Yeah, it was a roller coaster ride. It certainly had its moments. I thought the three Canadian goals in regulation were all beautiful plays. I thought there was long stretches where there wasn't a hell of a lot happening. And, the shots were like 20-20 after 60 minutes, or very close to that. And then, of course, 3-on-3 for 10-minute overtime opened it up a little bit. And
a lot.
Canada actually had more shots in overtime, 8, than they had in any of the 3 20-minute periods, 7, 7, and 6. And they played 6 minutes of overtime and got 8. So it tells you what the 3-on-3 does to it. But also, once Canada got motivated again to score that next goal, as opposed to sitting on the lead, I thought they were better then. So it was an interesting game. I wouldn't call it a great game. I mean, it's always exciting when it goes to extra time and you pull it out. But it's I guess a promising start for the tournament. I hope we'll see better games than that as we get deeper into it.
It's funny when I think of past tournaments, Olympic and Canada Cups, World Cups. There's been a lot of kind of iffy Team Canada games early in tournaments, and but it's hard to remember any of them.
Always.
You remember the big ones. I remember every game distinctly of the first 8-game series in 1972. But I've rewatched it. I rewatched it about 10 years ago. But I remember distinctly every game and plays in every game. But other than that, I don't. I just remember the final games. So in any tournament, you're going to get a little bit of Team Canada finding itself out. And the key is finding line combinations, and they struggled. There were some line combinations that didn't work tonight, including the one Connor McDavid was on, and we can talk about that in a bit. Bruce, this is our 2 good things, 2 bad things, and 2 numbers podcast about the game. What is your good thing?
Yeah, well, I got to go with Sidney Crosby. What's not to like? I mean, he was he left his stamp on this game literally from the first minute to the last, with 3 primary assists on the 4 Canadian goals, including a couple of real sweet plays. The opening power play, they promised us the Canadian power play would be exciting. And it was for all 12 seconds that it got to play tonight. They got a power play in the first minute, scored right away, and that was it. The whistles went away. Good old NHL.
Not a lot of penalties, though.
No, there wasn't a lot.
There wasn't a lot of penalties.
There really
Bruce.
wasn't. It was not that kind of game. But unfortunately, what that meant was no power play. So none of that intriguing 5-man unit, other than the great goal they scored in 12 seconds, where Cale Makar made a nice play along the blue line to tuck it down the boards to Connor McDavid. He snapped a pass to Crosby below the goal line. Crosby fed it back to McDavid, and Crosby at that moment snuck out over the goal line onto the positive ice, and that affected everything. I noticed the commenters noticed this as well later and said something about it during the intermission, but right away I thought, now you're in a good spot. And when Connor fed the puck back to Sid, he did the wheel around passed it right through a sliding Matthias Ekholm and right across the ice and onto the tape of Nathan MacKinnon, who had the wide open, yawning cage to put it in. Basically, MacKinnon had the same shot there that Connor Brown had in overtime in St. Louis, right? All he had to do was not miss the net because there was nobody around him. And, a puck was put right on his tape. Just an absolutely exquisite pass by Crosby. And then on the 3-1 goal, midway through the second, there was a defensive stand in the Canadian zone, and Crosby picked up Mark Stone picked up the loose puck in the high defensive slot and got it ahead to Crosby. And Crosby went in busting wide on the wing. The defense man, I think it was Forsling this time, came scrambling over to stop him. And Sid did what Sid does, which is he leaned into Forsling to protect the puck. He reminds me of Draisaitl in certain ways, in the way that he uses his body to, invite contact and roll off it, which is exactly what he did here.
Yeah.
He got the contact and he rolled and he spun, and as he spun, he fed it back to Mark Stone in the middle of the slot, and he slammed it in for the 3-1. And there's a couple other nice plays by Crosby, and there were plays that didn't result in goals, but those two did. And then, of course, in overtime, he again got the primary assist on, I'd say, a little bit more of a suspect goal. Like, it wasn't like a beautiful play, no chance for the goalie, but it was a nice play by Crosby in that he attacked the blue line, got the defenders scrambling, and then he just dropped it back into the neutral zone. As he went into the offensive zone, he had to sort of turn sharply and get out of the zone before the guy he passed it to, Mitch Marner, came into the zone. Sid just made it out in time, and he actually made it off the ice. He didn't get a plus on this play. And Marner gained the zone and fired a shot from the very high slot that somehow beat, I thought maybe screened, but on the replay, unscreened netminder for Finland, Philip Gustafsson.
Yeah, should have
And
had it.
that was, shots from the high slot were more dangerous than they needed to be tonight. Anyway, that was a good shot by Marner. It was right
It
inside
was
the
a very
post.
good shot right off
Right
the
inside the
post.
post.
Yeah, that was a
And
very good shot.
but anyway, it was I guess Sid left Marner with a bit more work to do than he did either Stone or MacKinnon on the first two goals, but nonetheless,
Yeah.
he got the puck to the guy who put it in the net. So 3 primary assists for Captain Canada. I wrote about Sid today and McDavid, the first time we've ever seen them together, and they did get those 12 seconds, right? Anyways, and the score, that's a pretty good batting average. What's that? 300 goals per 60? Yeah, pretty good. Anyway, Sid, of course, he's been an international hero for Canada going way back to his junior days, uh, including the great golden goal that he scored in Vancouver and the Olympics, where Canada lost the game partway through the tournament, but they wound up winning the gold. Anyway, the next Olympics was when they put the C on Sid. And 2014 Olympics, 2015 World Championships, 2016 World Cup of Hockey. He was the captain for all of them. And Canada went 21-0. 21 wins, 0 losses with Sid as the captain.
Kept it
And
alive
so
tonight.
they got up to
Barely.
20, they got up to 22 tonight, although this is one of those other wins, it wasn't really a win-win because we're actually going to talk about this later anyways, but they won, and Sid was a big part of the reason that they won. And I'm actually hoping that Connor takes advantage of this learning opportunity to hang around the great Sidney Crosby, who has got a long career, not just of great individual performance, but of great team performances with 3 Stanley Cups and a myriad of international successes. and still brings it. I mean, he was a great player in this game. It wasn't like he was there on you know, career service award. He was the best player on the ice, and he rightfully got the first star of the game. So
Yeah,
good on you, Captain Canada. Well done
yeah,
tonight.
I was wondering how he was going to do. He's been hurt. He's getting older. He's not the player he was, but
Still pretty
man, he
good.
had a great game. Reminds me of Iserman. Iserman, I think in 2002 in Salt Lake,
Hmm.
and Lemieux, like they were near the end of their careers, and they just cranked it up in that tournament, using their brains as much as anything else. And what a what a fantastic hockey player Sidney Crosby is. And it was great to hear Montreal just chanting his name, whatever, Crosby, or Captain, whatever it was at the end of the game. That was
Crosby.
fantastic to hear. The grade A shots in this game, Bruce,
He
were
grew up. He grew
17.
up a Habs fan, eh? So
Oh,
they've got this
I don't remember
connection
that.
from way back that Sid's a Habs fan at heart. Even though I never played for the team, but he's from, of course, Nova Scotia. Montreal would have been the closest team to him. It would be sort of the home team. It's not exactly next door to Cole Harbour, which is just outside of Halifax, but he was a Habs fan, so there's a connection there, and he's always been a class act, and always perform. It was also great to see Mario come out for the
Yeah,
pregame
yeah.
introductory thing, and he got a huge roaring ovation, as of course he fully deserved.
So the grade A shots in the game were 17-10 for Team Canada. And it was quite a defensive affair other than overtime when it really did open up.
Hmm.
Um, 4-4 for 5 alarm shots, a subset.
Right.
Both teams had 4. So there wasn't a lot of really great scoring chances. And again, the winning goal, well, as we counted it, 2 of the goals against Canada were on grade B shots, and the winning goal was a grade B shot.
Hmm.
Scoring chance shots, these are good shots, but these are shots that go in, let's say 10 to 20% of the time,
Yeah.
as opposed to a grade A shot, which is 20% plus. So there was a lot of those 20% plusers, but not a lot of the 5 alarmers, which are like 30% plus shots or something like
Right.
that. Bruce, you know, other than Crosby, who stood out, there were some really good moments for most of the other players, for many of the other players. That there was that really nice second goal by Marchand, which came on a great
Perfect
passing play
forward.
between I think it was Hagel, or was it, no, Jarvis, Seth Jarvis point, Pareko, and then Marchand
Now,
put it in.
Pareko made the first pass off the stretch pass off
Nice
the
pass off the
boards,
wall, and Jarvis. I
and
like Jarvis in
Jarvis
this
chipped
game.
it ahead. He's a good player,
Yeah,
Seth
I didn't
Jarvis.
know, like he's like, I have a bit of a grudge against this team because they didn't pick Hyman, right? And Hyman would have sure looked good on McDavid's line tonight. But there wasn't yeah, so there wasn't like great line play, and there wasn't consistently good play. Like Mark Stone looked good at times. A lot of players look good at times. But I thought overall the one Canadian defenseman who stood out as having a good game. It wasn't an exceptional game. Was Devon Taves. He had 2 incredible scoring chances in the
Oh,
third period, set up in the slot twice, and
the one where McDavid set him up.
yeah,
What a save
couldn't
that was.
drain
Oh.
couldn't drain either of them. So he was the best Team Canada defenseman tonight. He was the only Team Canada defenseman who kept a clean sheet in his
Uh-huh.
own zone. So
Well, his partner sure didn't. So,
McCarr didn't. But no, he's come out of nowhere, and he's never made a Team Canada before at any level, and he made this Team Canada, which is the big one, the biggest one we've had since 2014. It's shocking that it's taken that long. It's a disgrace, I think. Well, I know there was actually that one weird tournament, which I don't even count. That one.
2016. Well, even that wasn't the best possible team, Canada,
No,
because
because they
they
didn't
held the
have
kids.
McDavid
They
on
held
it.
the kids off of it.
Yeah,
So neither of those teams was as good as they might have been if they'd had a united Team Canada.
yeah. The 2 great shots were um, Hagel and Shirelli, and McCarr passed the play to Taves in this slot, and he failed to score. And then about Just 40 seconds later, Marner made a really nice pass to McDavid, who put it over to Taves, and somehow he
Oh,
missed it. That was a
he
tough
didn't miss.
play.
That was a great save.
Well,
I thought that
he
was
missed
all on
no.
Gustafson
He
making
missed
the
he
blocker
missed
over there.
scoring, Bruce. He missed
Yeah, yeah.
scoring.
It
He
was
didn't
a
miss the
great
net. He
stop.
made a great shot. Like he missed scoring. That was
Mm,
unbelievable because he got it above the goalie's pad. He got it off quickly. He did everything right. But the goalie got his blocker on it, Gustafson.
yeah, that was
But
the best save of the
Devon
game.
Taves is he's a very good hockey player. Man, I wish the Oilers had made that trade with the Islanders. What did they give up, a second round draft pick or something?
Basically, a pair of second round picks, and I'm not
What a
sure if one of them
steal.
was had already been picked and the other one was in the future.
Yeah.
I'm just looking them up right
Bruce,
now.
I just gonna interrupt here. You
Yeah.
continue on, say this, and then start your bad thing. I gotta make a few corrections on my game grades. I gotta go grab my other computer. So as
Oh
you're
yeah.
talking, I will do that, and I'll be back. But so you just proceed, okay? Be back in a sec.
Yeah. Sure. Uh, yeah. My bad thing is Jordan Binnington in regulation. I had him all picked out to be my bad thing, and then he did um, redeem himself in overtime with a couple of really outstanding saves. But before that, uh, I didn't think he was that good in the regulation part of the game, and both the first two Swedish goals were scored from what we deem to be grade B range. I mean, Jonas Brodin, who scores about 3 goals a year, he lobbed one in from over near the boards on the right side. Now it was an accurate shot that was high and it caught the bar and went down, but it kind of went over Binnington's shoulder, and he was not very tall in the net there to let that shot from that angle sort of hit almost the middle of the net, the middle of the crossbar, and then down into the net. And I just not sure if he wasn't expecting it. He didn't see the release point. Like it didn't even seem like it was screened. There was traffic, but it didn't seem like the line to the puck was screened. And yet that went in to make it 2-1 for Sweden, or sorry, for Canada, cut the lead in half. And then early in the third, with Canada leading 3-1, Adrian Kempe takes a nice pass from Eric Carlson, comes steaming up the middle, but he shoots a totally unscreened shot from basically the ringette line, and it wasn't a one timer. There wasn't really any puck movement before the shot, and again, it just beat Binnington clean. It was an excellent shot by Kempe. I mean, kind of like Mariners in overtime. It's a 10% shot, but the shooter is going to make 10% of those, and Kempe made this one, but Binnington didn't stop it. And then even on the 3-3, I didn't blame him for it, but I couldn't figure out what the hell he was doing because the puck went across the crease, and the guy was at the side of the crease, putting it up and over Binnington and into the net. But rather than attack the puck in the direction of the puck, Binnington was kind of perpendicular to it, falling forward into towards the slot, basically on falling on his face, and not in the direction where the puck was coming from, but almost 90 degrees from there. I just don't know if he lost his balance or it was just a continuation of a move that had failed previously to cut out the pass or something. But boy, did he ever look awkward. And all of those all those dire warnings about how Canada's goaltending wasn't up to snuff in this tournament certainly seemed to be coming true in force. And then, like I say, he then redeemed himself. I thought two really good saves in overtime. He really uses his stick well, and he came sliding across to get a very dangerous one timer with his paddle and tipped that up and away from danger. And then he made another pretty tough stop a couple minutes later, just not long before the goal that Canada would ultimately score. So, like I say, he redeemed himself somewhat, but two grade B shots, David. I put a note to you in our document that if Stu Skinner let in those two goals, he would have been virtually demoted to Fort Wayne Comets by the end of the game.
People have lost
I mean,
patience with Stu.
other goalies let in bad goals too. I guess this may be the moral of this story. right?
Well, yeah.
You
They,
watch them. You watch them close enough, they make mistakes. Go figure.
the moral of the
Yeah.
story is also maybe pick your goalie with the top save percentage, Logan Thompson, and see maybe if how he does. Like there's such an emphasis on the
Oops.
Stanley Cup winners, even if it's like
Mhm.
what is it, 6 years ago since Binnington won a Stanley Cup? That's a long time ago.
Yeah, as a rookie, yeah.
And I gave him a 4 out of 10. I thought that was a fair grade. He only had 9 grade A shots and he let in three.
Three.
Two of them were iffy goals.
Yeah.
And Bruce, I would definitely go with Aiden Hill next game. You need to
Maybe they will.
see if you can get a better game out of your goalie than they got
Hmm.
out of
Yeah.
Binnington. Yes, he did. He was in the way of some pucks. He did make some really good saves. Like he made some great saves. I'll give him that. That's why I didn't get a 3 or 2. He
Uh,
There was a few really nice ones in overtime, but man, the only reason this went to overtime is
yeah.
he let in a couple weak goals.
Right.
And
Right.
now these goals weren't only his fault.
Nope.
My bad thing is Drew Doughty, and I I thought Team Canada's defense as a group struggled tonight pretty significantly, including McCarr, who had some bad moments on defense. He was pretty good overall, Kale McCarr. At least, he's Kale McCarr. He's a great hockey player, but he had some iffy moments. And then Pareko and Morrissey were coughing up grade A shots um, at a somewhat alarming rate. They did, I really like Josh Morrissey as a hockey player. I think he's a fantastic player, but they didn't shut it down. They didn't get it done. And I think a lot of it, they were discombobulated after Theodore went out. They were moving the pairings
Uh,
around and shifting everyone around, and it didn't work out very well
nope.
um, after that. But so again, Taves was good, but the defenseman who was least effective was Drew Doughty, and he just wasn't ready. Like he was not ready for this pace of game. Wasn't ready for prime time. On the um, on the Brodeen goal, he lost the battle behind the net, and I don't know. Like I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think Cooper has a man-to-man defense going in Tampa Bay. I know he did when they won Stanley Cups, and this is a problem. NHL teams either play man-to-man or they play zone. If you've been playing zone all year, you do it one way. You do it
Yeah.
man-to-man, and if you have to switch up now, let's say he's going man-to-man in this tournament, it's a mess out there. And this goal was just a total mess. And I don't even know if Doughty was doing what he shouldn't do, but he ended up out of the blue line, Bruce. Like he loses battles behind the net and he's chasing his player all the way out to the blue line, and losing battles all the way. It goes through Mitch Marner, who's also a culprit on this goal against. And if it was man to man, maybe Doughty was on his man and doing the right thing. But if it wasn't, he was way out of position. He should have checked off to somebody else, and there might not have been a goal. He might have been back at the net where he should have been. But I can't say for sure because I don't know exactly what they were playing. I didn't figure it out. I was pretty busy grading the scoring chances and doing the game grades. But he was watering in the red light zone, Bruce, on that goal. Not
Mhm.
covering anybody in the end and not covering a passing lane. And he was a big reason for the goal against. Then on Kempe's goal, the tying goal in the third period, he's giving way too much gap to Kempe coming in. He's got to be up on that guy because
His
he knows he's
teammate.
got a shot, his teammate, and he gives him the high slot where Adrian Kempe is capable of scoring from. And that's on Doughty as much as it was on Binnington. The goalie should have made that save, but Doughty should have stopped that shot from happening. And because he's cheating. Like we heard John Klingberg talk about this when he was injured, how you cheat for gap, like you back up because
Right.
it's just you're not yet ready to adjust quickly to where the player's going to go. So you back up and you back in, and that's what Drew Doughty did. Listen, um, I'm a huge Drew Doughty fan. He has been a great hockey player for Team Canada. I don't know why though he was in the game instead of the other guy, like
Sandheim.
or Uyghur or Evan
Right.
Bouchard or Darnell Nurse. Like they could have
Why
picked a
was
number
that?
of other
Why he
players.
was added? Yeah.
I don't
Okay.
know why. I can see how he was at it, but I don't know why I was in the game. Like I don't think he's
Okay.
ready, and maybe they couldn't
Oh,
tell that from their scouting. But he that was one of the worst games I've seen Drew Doughty play, and he was a significant underachiever in it.
Well, as of now, he's one of six defensemen on the team. Maybe this can be our joint bad thing that Shea Theodore left this game after playing
Wow.
just 7 minutes with an apparent wrist injury. Got jammed into the boards on a fairly innocent check that just went awry, and he went off in pain. And the next thing they showed him on the bench, looking pained, and then he was gone. And so they were down to five defensemen for the rest of the game. Well, if he's out, they're down to six defensemen for the rest of the tournament. They're not allowed to
Yeah.
replace him. And if another defenseman goes out in the next game, they're down to five defensemen for the rest of the tournament.
Are they?
Yeah. Yeah,
That's how it
my
works, right?
understanding is the only way they can add players if they're down to fewer than 18 skaters. So there's a scenario where they could have 13 forwards and five defensemen and just have to go with what they have.
Could they say a
And
forward's injured who isn't really injured and sneak it,
well, it
sneak it
depends. I
that
mean,
way?
it's John Cooper, so you're going to get the legal angle, right? Anyways, so
Yeah.
it's I think kind of a wacky way to set up this tournament because even a short tournament, injuries happen. And if you only got two spare guys, I mean, you really want to have your gold medal game where one of your teams has got five or even potentially four defensemen
Well,
because something
hopefully
happens
Theodore's
again.
okay.
Well,
Hopefully Theodore will.
hopefully
Yeah.
he's okay, but he left with a wrist injury and didn't return, and so that
Yeah.
suggests he's
Didn't look good.
doubtful for the next game until we know otherwise. So that was kind of unhelpful for the Canadian cause tonight and going forward.
What's your number, Bruce?
Yeah, my number is 2+1, and that is the number of points given out in this game, which is standard fare for an NHL game decided in overtime, two for the winner and one for the loser, except in this tournament, they actually have the sensible modern rule, 3-point must system, where the winning team in regulation gets 3 points.
Oh.
Team who wins in overtime only gets two. Right in the
Oh.
NHL, the cockamamie point system that they have in the NHL is that if two teams don't decide a game, they just create a third point out of the ether, and they get to play for that point. And they get a bonus for not deciding their game in regulation. Well, under the spirit of this rule, which I at HF figured out in about 5 minutes when they first went to overtime shootouts and so on, around the turn of the century. NHL still hasn't got it right, but they got it right for this tournament, whoever's organizing it. Still not sure if that's fully NHL or what it is. Anyway, 2+1. So if USA beats Finland tomorrow or Finland beats USA in regulation, that team is actually in first place. They're not getting the same 2 points that the overtime winner got. And what you have here is a spirit of the old rule of a tie game where the teams split the points, right? It used to be 1-1 of the 2 points went to the two tie teams. Well, now it's 2-1 of the 3 points. So you can't just sort of sit on a tie game and take it to overtime saying, well, we can still get maximum points. No, you can't. If you take it to overtime, right, each team gets a point and they take that point from the other team in the traditional fashion, as opposed to just making one up out of Gary Bettman's massive brain, where one didn't exist before. You got 3 points to play for, and they're either going 3-0 or 2-1. And I heartily approve. The NHL should have done this years ago. They still need to do it. They won't. They never will, because they're the NHL. And they're
Now they might. Maybe they're experimenting, Bruce. Maybe they've been listening
yeah,
to this podcast, taking careful notes
yeah.
whenever you speak on this subject.
I've been speaking on David. I wrote a post for Copper and Blue in 2009
I know.
called "What is the value of a game-tying goal?" Where I pointed out that a tying goal is worth 1.5 points because you got a point for getting the tie, and then you got a 50% chance at the extra point that gets created by the tie, and it's the most valuable goal in hockey because just sort of pointing out the farcical nature of how the system is set up. Anyway, this tournament, like all the international IHF tournaments, like all the European leagues, like the Women's League, they all have the 3 points for every game, or each game has the same value. You pay for your ticket and you get to see 3 points awarded, no matter how the game actually breaks, and it's just so much fairer and more sensible. Canada paid a price for blowing that lead tonight. Like in the NHL, you can blow a 5 goal lead, and if you win in overtime, it's the same as if you just won.
I didn't know
Like,
that. I didn't,
and
and then there, I didn't know the
Canada
rules. They had
lost a
the 10
point
minutes
tonight.
overtime too. I liked the 10 minutes
Yeah.
overtime. That was good. Would there have been a
Yeah.
shootout at the end if
Yes.
there would have been? Okay.
Yes. Yeah. But it was still would have broke 2 and 1 out of the 3 points. Once it got to overtime, there was no going to be no 3 point winner. They were going to split those 3 points. And however it was decided, and tonight it got decided after 6 minutes of overtime, but it could have gone to the shootout. Same difference.
Sure. All right. Bruce, I wanted to add one other thing about Drew Doughty. Early in the game, he lost the battle of the blue line, and there was a 2-on-1. And lo and behold, there wasn't another defenseman back to stop the play. It was Sam Reinhart
That was a
back. It
great
was
play.
beautiful. And it was, I thought, typified the defensive effort of the forwards, especially in the first
Hmm.
period of that game. Team Canada played a great defensive first period, and the forwards were just coming back like demons. And Sam Reinhart, I thought he was really good with McDavid. I didn't think I think Mitch Marner belongs on this team, but he shouldn't be with
Absolutely.
McDavid. They need someone. There was one play in the third period where McDavid went to the net and
Hmm.
threw it out front, and Marner had gone to the other side of the net and then got boxed out. I mean, if you had Zach Hyman there, you might have had a goal. They need a player. They need to get a player who goes to the effing net with McDavid, and that's not Marner's game, and it's not Reinhardt's game. And McDavid was
You got
flying out there, and until they
Marchand.
get a player, Marchand or Konechny, one of those two, I think, are the obvious choices.
Mhm.
But Marner should be driving another line, and he's a fine hockey player. He scored a great goal in overtime, but he's not the right guy to play with McDavid. Anyway, the correction I made, Bruce, on my game grades, I was reading my Drew Doughty comment so I could remember what he did, and I put Sam Reinhart's name as Paul Reinhart,
Ooh,
which is at least I didn't say
okay.
Griffin. Paul is, of course, Sam and Griffin's dad, and he's
Indeed.
absolutely fantastic hockey player himself, as is Sam Reinhart. Man, he has become a great sniping, defending, two-way hockey player. I was really impressed with his game tonight.
Yeah.
Um, my number, Bruce, is 4. In overtime, Nathan MacKinnon I think Canada had 7 grade A shots, and Nathan MacKinnon had 4 of them. He was charging up the ice and trying to
Shooting.
win this game, and he was shooting. But Bruce, not one of those shots was the most dangerous 5 alarm shot. And not only that, he was also charging up the ice before his teammates were ready. Because if you don't score, here's how it works sometimes. If you don't score on your shot, if you're working with other teammates, they're charging in with you and they will get the rebound and score. There was one play where they were winding it up, and McCarr passes to MacKinnon and he just took off up the ice. And McDavid, meanwhile, was going behind the net, winding it
Hmm.
up, maybe hoping he was going to get the pass from somebody or at least work with somebody.
Hmm.
Go in there, and MacKinnon roared up the ice. He got a good grade A shot. He might have scored.
Yeah.
But man, if he had waited for McDavid, worked with his teammates in overtime, I thought it was actually kind of selfish hockey.
I did
And
too.
and
My
it
son said the
surprised me
exact same
because he's
thing.
not a
Came up
selfish
in a
player.
rage.
He's not usually a selfish player.
He leads the league in assists, David.
Yes.
So pass the
What was he doing?
puck once in a while. Like maybe one and out of the four, maybe one time pass and cross them up a bit. Because it was like, they knew what was coming because he was just laser focused on scoring that goal himself. I'm going to cut into the slot and I'm going to beat him far side or whatever. And Gustafson had the answers because, as you say, these are grade A's, but they're not 5 alarm chances because they're all solo efforts. And
He was really trying to
I
force it,
thought he was, yeah, yeah.
which
I
is
mean,
good.
I don't want to impugn his character. I just don't
No, no.
think he got the most out of his teammates with that particular approach in this game. He just got a little bit too, I'm going to win this thing, and he
Yeah.
didn't. He didn't win it. They won it though,
Li-
so
Yeah. I listen, I'm a huge Nathan MacKinnon fan. Like
he's
when
a
he wins
great
the
player. Holy
MVP,
moly,
when he
can he
wins the
ever
MVP,
skate?
I don't complain because he is an MVP player. He is a utterly fantastic player. He's one of the top four players in the world. And two of them are in Colorado and two of them are in Edmonton. And it's hard to choose between them often in games. They're all such spectacular hockey players. But yeah, maybe just work with your teammates a little bit more next time. All right, Bruce. The NHL announced today
Hmm.
or yesterday that they're going to have a 2028 World Cup. So they're going to be at the Olympics in 2026, World Cup in 2028. And if this starts a 2-year rotation,
That's the
I'm
plan.
all over that because, as we were saying, this is pathetic how long it's taken for McDavid to wear
Yeah.
Team Canada colors and play with play with Sidney Crosby. So, what do you think? Are you a big? I love both these tournaments. I'm glad they're doing both.
Yeah, well, it's definitely been way too long. And my post today, I wrote about that. How, here we have two generational players, and McDavid and Crosby have never played together because it's been 8.5 years since it's been a best on best. And it's actually been 11 years since they had a, true national best team.
Yeah,
Because even the last best on best, as we said earlier, you got McDavid on one team, Crosby on a different team, even though they're both Canadian. And so
yeah.
it's never happened before in McDavid's career. Now, in the years between 1976, when the first Canada Cup was played, and 2016, when the last World Cup was played, there was 13 best on best tournaments, eight Canada World Cups, 5 Olympic Games that had NHL players in them, and then the NHL pulled back from the 2 Olympic Games that both were in Asia, which I still don't understand. IOC is thinking of two in a row, Winter Olympics in Asia, and
It's
they
where the
they did.
money is, Bruce. It's
I
about the
I
money.
get two in a row,
It's
and
about the money. That's
it's a
why they did it.
it's a
If you just want
global.
to understand it, Bruce. I mean, I don't.
Well, and
That's
the
why
next
they
two
did it.
are in Italy and France. Like maybe mix
Split
them
them
up
up.
a little better than that. Anyway, so NHL steered clear of both of those, and then of course they couldn't get their own act together on the World Cup, and even when they had one, they had to gimmick it up to get 8 teams. And so we've been deprived really of true best on best for a decade. After 13 and 40 years, that's an average of one every 3 years. Well, the new scenario, and NHL.com has a lengthy article that I read just before we came to podcast air here. And the plan is definitely every second year. Olympics in 2026 in Italy, 2028 World Cup, 2030 Olympics in France, 2032 World Cup. And Bettman was going on about how they want this to be an established every 2 year cycle with all of these tournaments taking place in February. No more of the September stuff like we're used to seeing with the Canada and World Cup. So they're going to have big breaks in the season, which definitely has pluses and minuses. But it does mean that these tournaments get played with players more or less in mid-season form, as the old saying goes, as opposed to playing their way into shape in September. And so there are advantages to that. But the NHL, every other year, the NHL will have feature, a 2 or 3 week break to play
Yeah,
tournaments of these magnitudes.
yeah.
And then, of course, the players who play in the tournaments will play 82 games plus, 8 games or 10 in the tournament plus however many in the playoffs, and the schedule for the top players goes ever tougher. But
If you're gonna be a world sport, like if the biggest sport in the world is world football,
yep,
and they take international breaks several times a year
varies.
so their
Yeah,
national teams can play, and then they
yeah,
have like in Europe, so there's the World Cup every 4 years, and then intermingled with that is every 2 years there's either the
the
European Championships or
Euro.
the Copa Americana for South
Hmm.
America. So they have
Yep.
major tournaments every 2 years as well. Plus, interspersed with that, the international teams play exhibition games. So it's even more so. So I think this to be a world force, a world sport, this is a really good idea for the NHL. And
Hmm.
like fans can be however they want to be. I understand the instinct to like root for the home team, root for the Oilers, and maybe resent players going there, maybe getting injured, like maybe Shea Theodore. Like that's. But listen, this
Hurts. Yeah.
international play is there's nothing like it. I really believe that. There's just so much. It's so exciting and it's so significant. Like when your school of hockey, as it used to be called, goes up against a different school of hockey, and your best players go up against their best. That's the most thrilling thing of all. I love it, and I think this is great
Yeah.
that they're going to have all of these, and we're going to lose some of them. It's going to be frustrating and it's going to hurt. It's going to be
Hmm.
hard. We're not going to win all the time, but we're going to win, and we're going to win our share. Canada's going to keep winning and
Yeah.
share it. You even look at the young players, Bruce, in the guys in their teens now. It looks like some of this again, as always, like some of the very top superstars are Canadians, and a couple of them are actually McKenna and Dupont are in the Western League. So there's lots of talent coming. So
Yeah. Well, of those 13 best on best tournaments I mentioned earlier, Canada won 9 of them.
indeed, there you go.
So when you have all the best players, you got to like our chances, right? 3 out of 5 Olympics and 6 out of 8 Canada and World Cups,
Good stuff.
right?
We lost to the
So,
USA once,
yep.
and
And to Russia, the USSR in 81,
oh yeah, those horrible
eight,
Russians. That was
8 to 1
that
in
was
the
so brutal.
decisive game. Yeah,
That was so brutal.
was. So
So next game, Bruce, is
Saturday against USA, 6
oh
p.m.
yeah,
Mountain. So
grudge
this is the
match.
sort of the big one that people have been waiting for. And then they have Finland on the Monday, and then the top 2 teams go to the final next Thursday.
Isn't it
So
Finland on the Tuesday? Or maybe
on
you're
the,
right.
I
Maybe you're
think it's
right.
Monday. I
All
think they
right, you're probably
play
right. Okay.
Monday, and then it's off from
USA.
there. Yeah,
USA, that'll be
yeah.
fantastic.
One quick question for you, David, before we sign off. What do you think of McDavid's game tonight?
I thought he was spectacular in the first period. He was
Yeah,
just, riding on the roar of the crowd like Maurice Richard. Uh,
all over it.
and then he got quiet after that,
Yeah,
and he came on again. He didn't find anyone he could work with, Bruce. I think, except for Reinhardt, I
they're
thought
all
he
in
actually
Edmonton.
worked well in Ryan. He worked well with
Or
Reinhardt.
Cabo.
So they've got to think about this. They got to think a little harder. Why would you have two players like Marner and McDavid who really need the puck and work best? Like they drive Mitch Marner, I think, can drive a line carrying the puck. He should drive a line. Put him on his own line, the third line or the fourth line, and bump up. I don't know who you're going to bump up. Is it going to be like Konechny, um, Marchand? I think Marchand's not a bad bet. Actually, that's a really good idea, Bruce. Braden Point um, could be a guy if you have
Yeah.
enough centers. Otherwise, I just
Hagel and Sorelli, I think they're dedicated fourth liners, penalty killers on this
I didn't
team. I
mind
don't.
them either. They were
No, they're
okay.
good
They
in
were
that
good
role.
players.
They're really good. I mean,
Yeah,
you got 3 bolts. You got a couple of Panthers. I mean, Team Canada, they sure managed to pick as many far flung players as possible
they did.
while
Went
overlooking the
far and
Mark
wide.
Scheifele's and Zach Hymans of the world.
And I don't
But
want to make it sound like I'm against Mitch Marner. Like he is
he's
a
a great
fantastic
player.
hockey player. He's a great player. He scored the big goal. But
Scored 2
I
winners
don't
against the
see it
Oilers this
working with
year.
McDavid. I don't see that working. There, he's too. He's. I guess maybe they're thinking, well, he's kind of the RNH kind of player, like who works well with McDavid, but he's
Mhm.
not really. He's more of a puck carrier than RNH ever is. He's more of a driver of the play. He drives a line in a way Nugent Hopkins doesn't. Nugent Hopkins is a selfless facilitator on a line, and so, um, Reinhardt is fantastic with McDavid. I believe like he's a real shooter and they can make that work. And he's a
Yeah.
good two-way player as we saw tonight. But they need someone who will go to the net, and that's not Mitch Marner. That's Marchand. That's Konechny. I think, although I'm not as familiar with Konechny's
Hyman.
game. So, but I think either of those guys. What do you think?
Right. Hyman. Yeah.
Hyman, yeah,
Well,
but
yeah.
that's not. It's too late for that.
I
So
read I read one funny comment on Twitter from obviously from an Oilers fan. I can't remember who it was saying that Marner's having trouble because he's never played with a talent like McDavid before. Of course, he's been on Matthews' line for the last 8 years or whatever, but so it was kind of a side, just one of those snide, those snarky comments that I think was just meant for comedic effect. That's how I took it. Because
Yeah.
make no mistake, Austin Matthews is also a great player, and we're going to get a belly full of that guy on Saturday night.
And Nylander's a great player. Like Toronto's loaded with some great players there, and I wouldn't be. I'm hoping we get a Stanley Cup final between the two teams, but
Oh, that'll be
that'd be
beyond
fantastic.
compare.
Bruce, let's leave it there,
Okay.
and we'll talk again after the next game. Thanks for talking tonight.
All right. Thanks for listening, everyone.
And in the meantime, and in between times, this has been another edition of the Cult of Hockey podcast.